Yeah, we're ready to go then. Okay, so the title of my talk is Cloud Automation Manager and IBM Cloud Private, making your cloud experience developer friendly. So what we're talking about, the theme here is bringing a cloud-like experience to on-prem, right? So 81%. Set some context here, 81%. That is the percent of enterprises that have a multi-cloud strategy, and that's from the Right Scale State of the Cloud report in 2018. The big takeaway here, public clouds freed the line of business from the tyranny of central IT. So with the launch of Amazon EC2, that really was a game changer. The line of businesses were free to go and take their destiny in their own hands, and they did, right? And they were doing it in order to have agility. And multi-cloud is, in fact, one of the keys to achieving organizational agility. But that agility and that decentralization brought a bunch of challenges. So in the public cloud space, poor governance, oversight, and cost management, groups spinning up resources, not using them efficiently, sometimes just walking away from them, right? And they're continuing to incur a charge. From the Right Scale report, their estimate is anywhere from 35 to like 40% of cloud spend is wasted, right? It's wasted due to misallocated resources or resources that are, incurring a charge and not being used. The lack of standards and the explosion of tools that you need, right? There's lots of different clouds, lots of different capabilities and strengths. You got to learn a set of tools for each one of them. Poor workload mobility, vendor lock-in. You buy too deep into a particular strategy, and if for whatever reason you decide you need to back out of it, it gets really, really hard. In the private cloud, this phenomena also had some negative effects. How do you modernize existing applications? You have a whole bunch of applications, very high value. They're critical to the business. And with the rush to public clouds, a lot of times those were just kind of ignored. Companies are starting to come back and say, how do I bring these cloud-like characteristics to my on-prem applications? Either because I just want those cloud, the elasticity, the cloud-like consumption models, or I want to get them ready to move them to a public cloud, right? How do you do that, right? There's this whole huge collection of assets. Building new cloud native, and I put that in quotes, style applications that you intentionally want to run in your data center. How do you do that? How do you leverage all of the existing assets from investment in software to investment in training of people? The IBM middleware suite with WebSphere. I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar portfolio across all the products there, and there's a lot of investment in that, and you don't want to just throw that away. How do you maintain it? There are even more challenges: lack of integrated best practices and tools. There are operational challenges. How do you keep it up? How do you keep it alive? How do you ensure that it's responding promptly? How is the performance acceptable? How do you integrate it with your existing ITSM infrastructure? You have a whole range of technology choice: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, function as a service, cloud native, various microservices. There are challenges with organizations pivoting or adapting to a DevOps style development practices. From the central IT and the application developers, very fine line between them. How do you increase it, the interaction and the interoperability between those groups, with the end goal being agility? So IBM's perspective on that, IBM's approach for solving that problem is IBM Cloud Private with Cloud Automation Manager. So the way to take that is the speed of public with the control and oversight of private. IBM Cloud Private and Cloud Automation Manager, technically, you can look at it as a Kubernetes and Cloud Foundry container runtime environment with development tools on top of that, and Terraform for infrastructure provisioning, right? So what does this bring you? This combination, hybrid location, Cloud Automation Manager and Cloud Private, on-premise, off-premise, multiple clusters, multiple clouds. We have a point of view on those. Hybrid infrastructure. What I mean by hybrid infrastructure, containers, VMs, functions, cloud-native services. Hybrid applications. So applications that might have components, that are as a service components. Think ServiceNow for a service dashboard. It might have mainframe components, existing and new middleware applications, microservices. We have a point of view on normalized cloud management. So I don't want to overuse the phrase single pane of glass, but having a single control point to provide access to all of your clouds in such a way that you can maintain agility, yet exercise some oversight and governance. That's a good thing. Platform independent cloud development. This is something that, in the container world is finally within reach. Connect to a Kubernetes endpoint if your application is containerized and it has the underlying services that it needs. That workload is going to be very, very portable. So now you can do things like develop in a public cloud where it's inexpensive, a containerized application, move it into a private cloud with IBM Cloud Private, or vice versa. Maybe for whatever reason you've gotten your application running in containers in IBM Cloud Private and you want to start carrying it to the public cloud. That's possible. So one of the key points here is that the private cloud is critical to the overall IBM cloud strategy. And there's really kind of three ways of looking at it, 3 points, right? Where you land your workloads. IBM Cloud, formerly known as Bluemix, aka public cloud, right? It's available. It has a Kubernetes service. It has a whole bunch of capabilities and native services around Watson. You have, on the other extreme, IBM Cloud Private. Run it in the protection of your own data center. You can run in a dedicated environment. So IBM Cloud Private can be installed into infrastructure dedicated to you, right? So you don't have noisy neighbors. You're not sharing it. And the real cool thing about all of these, the public, the dedicated, and the private, is with the technology solution we're building with Cloud Private in synergy with IBM Cloud, is they all will have a common seamless experience in terms of how you interact with it, how you provision resources in it, in terms of workload mobility across these. You can decide what your workload is. You need a solution to do something. And then once you figure out what it is you want to do, your application, you can run it in any of these seamlessly. Looking forward, this could extend to basically any cloud that provides a Kubernetes endpoint. So what are the use cases driving the private cloud adoption? So this is a point-in-time statement. I expect this will evolve over time, but we see primarily 3, right? So the need to create new cloud-native applications, containerized applications, the so-called 12-factor apps, stateless. The second big use case is to modernize and optimize your existing applications. And then finally, if you're in the data center, you have applications there, you need to open those applications up to be able to bind to services that exist in the public cloud that you need, whatever those services might be. The canonical example from IBM is a Watson service out in IBM public cloud. You want to be able to do it repeatably, seamlessly, securely, bind to the service and use it. Move the data if you need to move it. Move the execution front end if you need to move it, and do it seamlessly, right? So with those 3 in mind, we're really focused heavily right now on the modernization use case, that middle use case. We're finding that point-in-time statement, about 70% of our customers have a lot of money invested in existing applications, and they want to cloudify them. They want to make them cloud enabled, either to gain those cloud properties, in their data center, or move them to a public cloud. And to that end, we really have approaches for these 4 key activities, right? Assess and plan. We have a tool that you can feed it ear files and war files, and it will give you insight into what parts of those applications can be containerized, or not. And, give you a very prescriptive way of actually containerizing those applications and making them, more cloud agnostic. We have a point of view on, a platform, a unified platform, to give you a common management plane of your hybrid cloud. So this is a traditional definition of hybrid cloud, right? Public cloud and a private cloud. That's kind of the traditional definition of what is a hybrid cloud. And we also have a point of view how you keep those clouds, how to keep those applications up and running, how to maintain them, operate them, keep them healthy, keep them secure. When we began to design IBM Cloud Private and Cloud Automation Manager, we realized IBM has a really, really long history in open source. We helped, incorporate the Apache Software Foundation, the Linux Foundation, the Eclipse Foundation. We've been using open source software in our products since forever. And we realized the importance of aligning with the popular open source movements, because the velocity of innovation is just really, really great. And also, acknowledging that a lot of our customers don't want to get locked into a solution. So Docker for containers, Kubernetes for container orchestration, Helm charts, the templating language, if you will, for Kubernetes applications, container, and then Terraform with, its proven infrastructure as code for infrastructure management. So these are kind of the 4 key pillars that mirror the earlier chart I shared with you, right? So starting on the left, the Cloud Garage, right? This is kind of modeled off of the Bluemix, former Bluemix Cloud Services. The idea there is to generate a set of best practices, in terms of documentation, courses, things of that nature, that you can get up and effective very, very quickly with our technology. There's Transformation Advisor. This is the tool that you can feed it an ear file or a war file, and it will give you a very prescriptive way to containerize your application. It goes so far as spitting out a Docker file based on the configuration that you can compile, generate containers, and feed that into the tool here, a microclimate, right? So microclimate can consume the output of Transformation Advisor and give you a very nice orchestrated way to manage your DevOps pipeline for your containerized applications. And then finally, this is kind of the focus of this talk right here. We don't have time to cover all of this in detail, but I want to talk about Cloud Automation Manager. We're going to deep dive on that right now, talk about the infrastructure provisioning aspect of it, as well as the service delivery aspect. So with Cloud Automation Manager, the way we like to frame it here, if any one sentence, right, we can seamlessly bring any cloud service in the world to your developers and do it on your terms. So think about that. Any cloud service anywhere in the world, we can bring it to your developers through the IBM Cloud Private catalog. They don't have to know where that, where it lives. They don't have to know. They just want one, give me an instance, bind to it, use it. Database as a service, function as a service, doesn't matter where it lives. We want to provide a very, very nice interface for using it. So I'm going to carry you through a story here. I'm going to talk about capabilities and use cases, right? So the two kind of are hand in hand. They're not the same thing, right? A capability is not the same as a use case. A capability supports a use case. So let's start with the capabilities first. And the words in yellow, I want you to remember them because we'll refer to them, right? This idea of assembling and curating cloud services. Those cloud services can exist anywhere in the world, in any cloud in the world, and you can combine them, mix them, and match them. The idea of curating is removing some of the complexity. A lot of automation technology is highly parameterized. And if you throw, even a Helm chart in front of a developer and it has 100 different knobs to turn, it's like, I don't want to be in this business as an application developer. Somebody else take care of that. Give me an environment that I know will work for me, right? Don't make me an expert in, in whatever the technology is, whether it's, Google TensorFlow or whatever it happens to be, right? I just want an environment to do my app development in. This idea of automating and orchestrating, right? So that's what we're here for. That's this conference, right? Automation and orchestration. Orchestration is implementing automation in a specific order. You can't just go say, automate everything because, you need your VM before you get your IP address. Certain things have to happen in a certain order. That's the orchestration aspect of it. We got a point of view there. We also, with Cloud Automation Manager, we're not an out-of-the-box end-to-end cloud management platform. We know that. We have the brain, the automation engine, the orchestration engine, and a tool for building services. We want you to bring whatever day two management tools make the most sense. All right, so let's, one more touch point here. How is Cloud Automation Manager delivered? So Cloud Private is IBM's, private cloud Kubernetes, management platform. It's a lot more than that, but Cloud Private is the landing spot for, all IBM middleware going forward. We're going to have containerized versions of it. We're going to have a very big, rich catalog of containerized content, open source, third-party content, from other vendors, as well as the IBM middleware that, you can stand it up, make it available to your developers. Cloud Automation Manager is a piece of content. It's a collection of containers that is installed into a Cloud Private Kubernetes worker node with a Helm chart, right? So the container images themselves live out on Docker store. If you install Cloud Private, the Helm chart is there in the catalog. You just need to do a couple of persistent volume claims, get your credentials on Docker store, install it, and away you go. Right, so let's look at a use case, right? So this use case is around assemble and curate, right? So the capability, assemble and curate. This is a specific use case. So as an infrastructure and operations architect, I can collaborate with my DevOps colleagues, if I like to collaborate with DevOps types, to assemble a sophisticated cloud service. And that cloud service can be built from VMs, containers, cloud native services. Think AWS RDS, AWS Cloud Lambda, IBM Cloud Forms, right? Any native service. Located in any cloud, and I can publish it into the IBM Cloud Private catalog for my developers. So here's the INO architect. He uses a thing called Service Composer, and I'll show you that. And he can consume resources from all of these different places and put them into this catalog. So he can assemble and he can curate, and then he can finally publish, right? And in the end, your line of developers get to consume these things. They basically say, give me an instance. We say, here's a bind interface, bind to it, use it, done, right? And these guys, the central IT guy, can take ownership of the lifecycle management, or he can, potentially delegate certain lifecycle management capabilities to the end user, depending on what's needed. So here's a screen cap of Service Composer. This is a graphical drag and drop tool that allows this INO architect to graphically build a cloud service. I want to walk you through this service here. So, assemble, this idea of assembling. You drag activities from the palette, and the activities are over here. There can be Terraform configurations. There can be Helm charts, right? And you can drag and drop those, onto the palette. So what I'm showing you right here is, this is a fairly simple example. We can make these as complicated as you like, but it's a WebSphere ND on a VM. That VM needs an IP address, so we have an InfoBlocks integration, a very simple Terraform module that goes out to InfoBlocks, an IP address management tool, and says, give me an IP address. And it says, here's your IP address, here's your host name. And our tool lets you easily feed the output of that into the input of this. then you create the VM, then you provision it with, with WASND. Depending on the plan, that the end user selected, that could be the end of it, right? He can get a Slack notification when his environment is ready, and he can, can be up and running with it. If it's a test plan, we may want to integrate it with an elk stack, right? So I want to capture the logs and do some more formal management of the logs. If it's a production plan, you need to understand the long-term health. So a couple of integrations there to integrate it with IBM APM. So these are Terraform configurations. They could just as well be Helm charts. They could be Helm charts and Terraform configurations. These all happen to be in VMware, but they don't necessarily have to be in VMware. The takeaway here is this experience of designing a service is the same regardless of the cloud that you're building this from. You're consuming Helm charts and Terraform configurations. We have some data services to help you wire them together quickly. And then you press publish, and they go into the catalog. So I'm going to show you what this looks like, right? There's my WASND service. Here's, and this is the Cloud Private catalog, right? So there's Helm charts here and all these things that are called service. Those are services that were built by Service Composer and CAM. Here's what it looks like to order it, right? So very simple. I radio button. I want development, staging, and production. As the end user, you don't necessarily know what's behind the scenes here. You don't know that this production instance has a performance monitor integrated into it. Hits configure and it's provision, and he gets his Slack notification when it's done. And he's presented once it's provisioned, he's presented a bind interface that he can use to drop his ear files and WAR files into. All right, so this is just one simple example. Okay, so let's finish this one up, right? So with Assemble and Curate capability in Cloud Automation Manager, it lets you normalize delivery of cloud services to your developers seamlessly on your own terms. You can assemble cloud services with our graphical drag and drop tool. They can be multi-architecture, containers, VMs, cloud-native services, microservices, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, any cloud, doesn't matter. The clouds that we support, let me note that, right? So Terraform is our cloud provisioning tool out of the box. We support, the 4 big public clouds: IBM Cloud, Azure, Amazon, and Google. For on-prem, OpenStack and VMware, Power VC, ZVM, CMA, and if, for example, for whatever reason you want to use DigitalOcean, there's a Terraform provider out there. You can load it into CAM and use it, right? So anything out there in the open Terraform community, you can load and use in CAM. This idea of curating, right? That gives you a degree of governance and control. You can limit the size, of a database for your developers, right? I know this is big enough for what my developers need, or I'll give them a choice of a small, a medium, or a large, but I can curate it. I can curate the size, the configuration. I can curate where that database lives, and my developers are hidden. That's all opaque to them. They just say, I need a database, here it is, bind to it, use it, done. You can customize cloud services. So if you need to define multiple service plans, maybe you need to integrate with heritage ITSM tools. What I mean by that is things like, BMC, CMDB tools, right? You need to, when you bring a new environment up, you need to register it with a CMDB from BMC, Remedy or ServiceNow or IBM Control Desk. There's our orchestration engine is itself a custom Terraform provider. You write a very simple Terraform integration, and we have a number of integrations out of the box to help you integrate with ticketing systems, CMDB, so forth. And then finally, publish those services into the Cloud Private Catalog. The Cloud Private Catalog is an open service broker compliant catalog. So, that opens up a lot of future potential right there, just being open service broker capable. And we also support integrating into third-party catalogs. Okay, so let's look at use case, the next use case here. This is the automate and orchestrate. So the thing that I want to convey to you here is that you can automate your infrastructure declaratively. You can describe, what you want, not how you get it, right? And that's what you get with Terraform. Since it's, a text-based declarative file, you can check that file into a version control system. You can manage the life cycle of that piece of infrastructure using, standard Git techniques, committing to a development branch, promoting into a test branch, finally promoting into a production branch, and manage this handoff between, the person developing the automation and the person responsible for using that automation in a solution. Just using Git, right? It works. So we use Terraform when we, were designing this offering. There were really no other good choices out there other than build our own, leverage like Tosca or something like that to define our own provisioning language. Urban Code Deploy had spent a lot of time with OpenStack and building, cloud provider OpenStack extensions. We looked at both of those and it's like, Terraform's out there. It's getting traction. It's got community support. We like how it works. So let's pick it up and, try to carry that community forward with HashiCorp and make it a win for all of us. We have a graphical, and this is our other graphical design tool, right? I showed you Service Composer earlier. For those of you familiar with Urban Code Deploy, this probably looks pretty familiar. We lifted the blueprint designer out of Urban Code Deploy and tasked it to help us graphically define Terraform. So not only does it have a text editor, it has a graphical editor and a whole bunch of capabilities to help you, manage variables, catch dependencies, catch errors really quickly. So this is a really, really powerful way to design Terraform. It's integrated directly into Git. Cloud Automation Manager is integrated directly into Git. So this is our front end tool, right? That we're building out to help you really quickly build that automation. Here's an example of a template, right? So a Dynatrace one agent installation template. This is the view, template library up there. I'm sorry I can't show you a live demo, but in CAM we have a template library view. You have tiles or lines of stuff that's that your admin has decided to make in the library. This is where it lives, right? It lives in that Git repo there. This is an example of deploying that template with a a user interface, right? So it introspects the template. It finds question.
I'm sorry. All these licensed products, do they come with it? Is it part of the cost?
Everything that I've showed you now comes with it, right? So these are all This now Dynatrace, the integration would come with it. We don't include Dynatrace itself, right? So again, we're giving you a toolbox and a very prescriptive way to build the cloud management. Because if we gave, if we included Dynatrace, they're going to want New Relic, and the guy back there is going to want APM. So that's not a race we can win, right? So here's a very prescriptive way. If you have an agent-based performance management tool, which they all are, right? It's a very simple way to create a Terraform module to inject that agent, bind that agent to its server, securely, and away you go. Okay, the summary of automate and orchestrate. Automate any cloud service in any cloud consistently and repeatably with a common approach in all clouds. That common approach gives you a way to standardize provisioning across your entire, server fleet. You can standardize it and simplify it. It's built on open technology, Terraform, Chef, and Helm. We do leverage Chef for configuration management. Can manage infrastructure as code, declarative, focus on the what you want. I want a 5-node cluster. Now I want a 7-node cluster. I don't have to say add 2. I can just say I want 7, and Terraform will take care of it.
Does it go across data centers?
If you can get the connectivity, the network connectivity, sure. You can install Cloud Automation Manager here and get connectivity to whatever data
To
center
do
that you need.
replication or DR or?
So replication in DR, we're building out a roadmap and a point of view on that. We don't want to recreate a bunch of tools that already exist out there today, because there are good tools for
Use my
doing that.
data center, can my cloud automatically come up with all the chef scripts?
Yeah. So where we're going to start with that, right, is with containers and container management, right? So absolutely, from the container management perspective, running on-prem, you want to fail over to a container cluster and IBM Cloud. That is a use case that's on our roadmap for this year. Now, getting down into the VM failover, that's something that we're still, articulating a point of view on, but it's something that, that we're certainly looking at. Pre-built content, I'll share a little bit of this, right? So we got a bunch of Helm charts in the IBM Cloud Private catalog. That's going up like this, right? Lots and lots of content, lots of open source content, lots of third-party content, lots of IBM content. We have a number of Terraform configurations for popular IBM middleware things. We have Apache HTTP server, IBM HTTP server, WebSphere Liberty, WebSphere MD, MQ, Oracle DB, DB2. We got a bunch of Terraform configurations there. They're all open source. They're out in our open source Git repository, and they're under Apache license 2.0. You can, our intent, if you can use them, we think they're production grade. A lot of them have chef automation recipes and cookbooks, all open source. And, as a user of Cloud Automation Manager, we encourage you to take those, fork them, adapt them, make them serve your purpose. Okay, final use case here, fit for purpose cloud management, right? As an IO architect, I can use CAM as the central brain of my fit for purpose cloud management platform by integrating, tools of my choice, right? So, CAM here is in the middle. So we have our graphical template designer that I showed you. We have our graphical service composer, full REST API, by the way. We're not forcing you to use a UI. If you want to program to a REST API, you can do that. And the types of things we integrate with, right? So, the NetCool family of products, Urban Code, IBM APM, Infoblox, and if you use a different IP address management system from Infoblox, this Terraform configuration is dead simple to just copy and adapt it to whatever it is you're using, Blue Diamond or whatever else. Dynatrace, IBM Elk Stack, or the Elk Stack that is built into IBM Cloud Private. We have an integration with that. ServiceNow integrations, things like CMDB, CR, publishing into the catalog. We have some examples for how to do that. A new thing that is on tap for later this year is cost and asset management capability. It's going to be a new piece of content in the Cloud Private catalog. You connect it to your public clouds, and it will tell you how much you're spending, what your trends are, who's incurring the spend, what your asset utilizations are. Are you underusing VMs? Are you overusing VMs? Things of that nature. Things like BigFix for applying updates. Basically, any agent-driven integration is pretty darn simple to get up and going. So again, the review of the fit-for-purpose cloud management, we designed CAM from the ground up to be, easy to extend. We didn't want to force a particular performance solution on you. We wanted you to be able to pick your own and integrate it, make it work. We wanted to leverage Cloud Private native services, right? So Cloud Private as a platform, again, I told you earlier, it's a very strategic platform for IBM going forward. It has a very rich set of services. So Cloud Automation Manager leverages the identity and access management and security services of Cloud Private. You onboard users into Cloud Private. CAM inherits those users, inherits the role-based access control model provided by IBM Cloud Private, very tightly integrated there. And finally, CAM really offers an interesting way to bridge traditional and cloud native. So some of the use cases we're seeing, customers use it for is, you know, they have a fleet of VMs, and, you know, the automation is just ad hoc scripts, and they want to bring a little bit of formality to it, but they're not, you know, they don't want to like invest a huge boatload of money into traditional ITSM. So CAM gives them a way to start bringing those VMs, you know, automate them with Terraform, bringing them into, you know, the CAM management plane, and that's a really nice stepping off point into, you know, the whole container world and the hybrid cloud management aspect of containers. We provide integrations to those traditional CMDB tools. So the ecosystem here, I've spoken to this a little bit. So we have, you know, a lot of pre-built content around open source Terraform. And these are just straight Terraform, right? Mean stacks, lamp stacks, Node.js, strong loop. I won't read all through the details there, but all that code's Apache License 2.0 out in our Git repo down here. You can go fork it, do what you want with it. Our enterprise middleware catalog, this is the stuff that is augmented by, you know, chef recipes and scripts. All that stuff, again, is open source and available. And it's built around our integrated chef support. So we actually don't distribute chef server itself, but we have a point of view for how to build a bastion server in your provider cloud, in IBM Cloud and Amazon and VMware. And that server is, you know, like a remote control point where you can trigger chef automation, where you can tell that chef automation where to find binary install images and things of that nature. So it makes it a little bit cleaner. Yeah.
How do you communicate with chef server?
I don't have a chart right here, but we have this thing we call the content, advanced content runtime. So if I connect to Amazon, for example, I can provision a bastion server on a VM in Amazon. And that bastion server has 3 things on it. It can have a chef server or a binding to another chef server. It has an installation repo, so you know, all your binaries. So, you know, if you're talking like WebSphere, that's a few gig binary, and if you had to push that over, you know, a north-south bound interface in Amazon, it'd cost a lot of money. So you can just push it out there once into the installation repo. And then finally, what we call the pattern manager. It's a custom chef provisioner that we wrote for Cloud Automation Manager. We wrote this before the chef provisioner, you know, that's available in Terraform today was available. And it turns out we have some kind of interesting capabilities. Chef is a bit of a weak tool for orchestration. It's like you turn it on and turn it loose. It doesn't. Yeah.
So I'm trying to find information because we're planning to move from IBM Cloud Orchestrator to CIM.
Right.
And I'm on the other side because I'm the chef developer. So if you could share more info, what you have done with chef.
Yeah, we can do that. Let's exchange email addresses, and I'll set up a deeper dive with you. I think that'll be the good thing. The Terraform open community. So, you know, we use Terraform. We don't fork it or do unnatural things to it. We like it as it is, right? So, you know, we wrapper it, right? Terraform at the base is a command line tool that you run on your laptop. We wrapper it with role-based access controls. It's a remote server rather than running on your laptop. You know, we can lock it down and control it and curate it a little bit better. But, you know, all the stuff that's out there in the open community, if it's Terraform, you can use it. You can check it into a Git repo and use it to compose services with Service Composer or provision it directly. Whatever makes sense. The Cloud Private Helm content catalog, this chart is a couple of weeks old. It's probably out of date, but you can see it's got, you know, a good number of Helm charts out there. And again, the idea behind this Helm content catalog is to give your developers on-prem a very cloud experience, right? It's just like, I don't want to be a database expert. I just want a database. You know, give me a MariaDB right there, or a MongoDB. Just give me one, bind interface and I use it. I'm done. I don't have to be a database expert. We can curate that. You know, we can either expose lots and lots of parameters if that's what you need to do, or we can narrow it down and make it very, very simple to consume. So all up and down, right? Tool chains and runtimes, logging services, transformation advisor that we talked about. I won't go through all these. You should have access to these charts, I think. And that's all there. So, you know, the things of relevance to a cloud management platform, you know, these are kind of the interesting ones, I think, conceptually interesting, right? So Cloud Private with Cloud Automation Manager is sort of the core, a set of automation and application services, Kubernetes, and on top, you know, DevOps with Urban Code. Urban Code can reach into CAM, discover environments, and manage application tool chains on top of those environments. With IBM Application Performance Management and some of the follow-on tools that we will be announcing soon there, you know, you can monitor those environments. If you want to do it with New Relic, you can do that. If you want to do it with Dynatrace, you can do that. You know, deeper management with the NetCool Operations Insight Suite that's really popular. The NetCool tools are really popular in the telecom industry, as it turns out. So they provide a lot of deep alerting type capabilities. We integrate with them. I don't want to, you know, mislead you. We're not bundling this stuff with CAM. We're integrating with it, make it easy to build solutions. And then finally, on the governance side, there is a cost and asset management solution from IBM available as a managed service out of Software Data Center today. And we're going to make that available as a Helm chart that you can install into Cloud Private Worker Node. You know, that's something later this year you can see. So, you know, if you look all across here, we cover, you know, today, complete end-to-end container cloud management that is inherent in Cloud Private, and with Cloud Automation Manager and these integrations, we pick up infrastructure in any clouds, performance management of resources in any cloud, and managing, you know, those more traditional DevOps tool chains with Urban Code. So okay, I'm about done here. So just this is a recap. Last chart here, right? So we can help you accelerate delivery of applications in production by improving the productivity of the people who develop the cloud automation, the application service architects, your application developers, make it easy for them. Get them out of the infrastructure business. We can improve efficiency by standardizing delivery of cloud infrastructure with infrastructure as code. We can manage that cloud infrastructure with DevOps practices. It's purpose-built for integration. We designed Cloud Automation Manager as a container-based cloud management platform. It makes us very agile in developing it, and you can you know, leverage all the Kubernetes capabilities to make it enterprise-grade, highly available. Hybrid ready, hybrid architecture, hybrid location, hybrid cloud, mix and match. It works for all of them. And then finally, you know, this notion around fit for purpose cloud management. You know, you can compose bespoke cloud management platforms. So please reach out to me if you have any other questions. You want a deep dive follow up, a demo. We can give demos very, very easily. Stoddard@us.ibm.com. Drop me an email, and I will be happy to arrange something for you. Thank you.